Hey, what's up, everybody? video 44 coming at you with another video. All right. So, staying in the house for as many days as I have, man, got me out of the shape that I want to be in, but I got a great deal of exercise just now. Did all my normal stuff, including climbing the hills over there by my old Hollywood neighborhood. Got that. I walked slower than usual, climbed stairs slower than usual. This has not been a good month because of the weather. And probably just because of the schedule, trying to keep up with everything that I got going on has kept me on this side of town. So as a result, I ain't really doing as much walking this month as I like to, as I normally do. March has not been a good month for that, for me. So today, I got an opportunity, and I took it. So yeah, now I head back, try to keep keep this walking going, and then of course do what I got to do when I get in the house, and then prepare for the activities of homework that prepare me for the games tomorrow and the day afterward as well. So I want to do some art, I want to do some exercise, I want to rest, I want to do all types of stuff that I just don't have time for. It's the God's honest truth. I just don't have a time for all the stuff that I actually have in mind, but gotta work it out. I should have bought some rice while I was out there in Hollywood, but I forgot about it, man. I walked right past the place, didn't buy it. So by the time I realized that, I had already gotten to the train station in Hollywood and Highland. So I'm like, man, I'm not doubling back. I'll just get some on Tuesday. Monday is my therapy session with Lydia, so I could probably do it that day after the session, but the session is an hour later than what it normally is, so I'm be getting out of there a little later than usual. Not ideal, man. I like my therapy sessions at 1 o'clock is a perfect hour for that. So maybe I'll get out earlier and buy the rice before the session. That could be possible as well, but that's kind of along the lines of what I'm thinking, man. So just trying to do what I got to do, taking care of my responsibilities to myself, and thankful that I have the freedom to do that. Not everybody has it, obviously. So as I struggle with managing my time, I have to remind myself that is free time. And not everybody has that. Not everybody's even alive, of course, to do that. So I had a guy almost hit me while I was walking. It was my right to go over there in Cahuenga, near where I used to live. I guess this guy was not pleased with life or whatever. He decided to turn in front of me as I'm walking across the street. So I think he had measured it out pretty well, but if I decided to take off running for some random reason, which some people do halfway across the street to start jogging, he hits me. I was pretty perturbed with that, but you can't let stuff like that get you down. You can't let stuff like that have you angry, you know what I mean? Crashing out or wanting to crash out or having energy that's equivalent to what would come if you were to crash out. That is what the devil always wants to inspire within the mind of somebody who's prayerful. And I feel like I've been challenged a lot in that way, just from being in the room I've been in and having people outside my window yelling, as I was telling you guys at the beginning of the last video. And I just feel like I've been challenged. The more praying I've been doing, the more I find myself being challenged to be patient, challenged in uncomfortable ways. And it just it requires you to meditate without the comfort of peace and quiet. And so I think that I reflect on something that I saw today that kind of aligned with that. It was either the day I saw this or yesterday. There's a lady who posted something online, said something along the lines of, when you have your space of peace, it's easy to go into a meditation. But how many of us can stay in that meditative space in the presence of others and in the presence of chaos and stress? That's when you've tested yourself. When you've reached that space, that's when you've mastered the mindset that you want to find when you meditate. It said it in fewer words that kind of condense and make more sense, but essentially, how many of us can stay in that meditative space when there's a lot going on around us that doesn't allow us the quiet time to do so? That's the question. Can we all do that, or is it just we're only in that Zen mindset and spiritual space when we have peace and quiet? You know, that's what we're aiming for when we meditate, is to be able to maintain that peace in yourself when there is no quiet, when the surroundings aren't peaceful. So that's ultimately what I'm trying to say, is to just, you know, let that be something that we're aiming for if we meditate a lot. And, you know, it's a goal, and that goal is to be able to handle our lives better, handle our stresses better, and ultimately not be in a space where we require quiet in order to fall into that meditative space or that meditative mindset. And so that's the goal from here on out. I think that's what the challenge has been in this room. I'm used to having peace and quiet from which to do my prayer meditation. I ain't really been able to have that. And sometimes throughout the course of these last 12 days or whatever it's been, I found myself frustrated trying to meditate, frustrated trying to pray, because these people are so loud outside my window or what have you. And so I think that's what the challenge is. Try to get better at not needing that quiet time and not needing people to be, you know, not around or whatever, to be able to zone into that space of mind. And we talked about that on a therapy session, maybe about 20 therapy sessions ago or something. I thought of that type of thing. So this is just a reiteration of that same thought. But, you know, more so now I'm being challenged. And so, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't shun others for being social or being, you know, happy. I think the idea is there's equivalence to being in the presence of others and being social with happiness for a lot of minds, for a good portion of minds. They require others. They're used to and conditioned for others. You grow up with brothers and sisters, mom and dad, and everybody and the dog in the house. And so for those who are conditioned for that, there's a certain emptiness that comes with being by themselves. But so too is the opposite for those of us who didn't have that, who are used to being alone, who are comfortable. There's a certain overwhelming that comes with the presence of others and people constantly being in your face and stuff like that if you're an introvert and you're conditioned for being introverted, for which I am, both. So it's, you know, as I was saying at the beginning of the last video, it's a challenge, man. It's a challenge being forced into spaces where you're surrounded by extroverts and people who are in need of others to communicate and stuff like that, and constantly needing something from you. Don't understand that you could be at peace without being alone. And it requires to have to communicate with some of these people your boundaries so that they won't cross them or think you require the opposite. And so for me, it's a tricky thing, because I want a family. I want my own kids, I want my wife and all of this different stuff in my life. So how do I actually convince myself to live in that space where I have a house full of people, being this introverted person, conditioned for this for a long time, as I've been? And it's like, I want a family because the idea of being able to raise children and pass down lineage, and, you know, if for some reason I'm able to find some type of, you know, wealth or what have you, to pass down what it is that I own to kids and have people with you and celebration and all of that stuff, it holds a lot of weight for me. But the reality of that is different than the idea of it, I guess. You know, like constantly having people in your house, in and out. Like, I got to a point where I got tired of being in the house with just my mom at one point. I'd want to go to the bathroom, because we lived in a little one bedroom, you know, a single rather, to where I got smothered with my own mom. At one point, it was like, yo, I need my own space for real, bro. Like, as I started getting older, started having some of my mental health issues, stuff like that, I didn't even want to be around the most important person in my life. So I know for me, it's like, I don't know if that's going to be any different once I have a wife and kids. Maybe I shouldn't be aiming for a wife and kids with that being my reality or my comfort. But it's like, there are certain things about my life that in my mind are very fruitful for having family and having people that you come home to and stuff like that. It's just the idea of it, I suppose, isn't what I feel the reality would be, for which I don't know if either is true. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if either of that is true. because I'm not in that space to know if that is what it is. So I'm used to having a happy home one way or another. That's one thing that I can say, whether I'm by myself without people or my mother was living with me. We didn't have unhappy home. I mean, we'd argue here and there, but it wasn't like it was domestic violence going on, drugs and alcoholism or nothing like that. My mom was clean, so I only know the conditioning of having things either be what I want it to be or, being able to find it rather soon, I guess is what you could say. You don't stay in those spaces for too long where things aren't great in my living situation. So for those who don't know that conditioning, it's very difficult for me to relate to them. For those who only know unhappiness in their house, only know abusive people in their homes, that's something that I would do more listening to in regards to figuring out how they feel rather than to being able to chime in. So it's like we're all different. A lot of people, literally live the complete opposite lives of one another. It gets tricky, man. It gets very tricky. We live in the opposite of one another's lives sometimes. What it is that makes you very comfortable is the opposite of what makes somebody else very comfortable. The thing that makes you very uncomfortable could be the very thing that you need. You know what I mean? And that, when you are an introvert who's used to being alone, becomes something that almost is not real to you at all. I may have mentioned this one time, but I remember one time as a child, I was used to the way my mother did things. And I could ask her where we were going. She would tell me. She'd give me an answer. Oh, we're going such and such place. We're going here. We're going there. We're going there. And I got in a car with my dad one time. I asked him where we was going, and he got offended. He was like, why you asking me where we going? We're going where we headed. And I was so put off by that. I'm like, I'm used to my mother answering that question, not being offended by it. I didn't know that was something to be offended by. I didn't know I was in the wrong for having curiosity about our destination. So it was like it started, starting to come around different people, having been used to that one person for the most part early on in my life was like an eye-opener. And the more I got exposed to different types of people, the more I realized such things exist. Not everybody's like my mom. It's like that was what it was for me. So as I grew older, the conditioning of being alone and the conditioning of being around only a few types of personalities allowed me to have a scope of the world that probably wasn't even really what it is. And as I continue to grow, I don't at this point, 40 years in, think there's too much I haven't seen in terms of personalities, or at least heard about if I haven't seen it myself. But the likelihood that I'm uncomfortable with it is still in place. Certain personalities, certain things I ain't used to. And I ain't gonna lie to y'all. But it just is what it is, man.
And they're gonna be ready, correct?
The more I grow, the more I know, just like everyone else. And I think the idea is to have the temperament for different things that otherwise may annoy me or may make me feel uncomfortable or what have you, to grow stronger and have more of a meditative space from which to be able to receive differences in people's personalities and circumstances alike. So yeah, man, that's what this day's kind of theme has been about. It's just I'm gonna talk to you guys about how it makes me feel in spaces that are social. And I think that's relevant for this being a therapy session. But I understand that what I'm used to is not what you'll see on average. I don't think that I'm a normal guy in that way. For the culture that I'm from and stuff like that, very social, very performative in making people feel like we're acceptable and cool or whatever, different types of things. Gotta fit in with the in crowd. I don't even know why we're doing this, but we're doing this because everybody else does it. And if I don't do it, I'm not like them. Like, I'm the opposite of that. I'm literally the opposite of that. I could care less about what people think is cool in a lot of cases. The status quo can be fine in certain cases. I'm not a contrarian, as I've once said recently, but just the same, when it comes to me just needing to make you feel like I want to fit in, I I look at myself as somebody who's a leader more so in that way rather than somebody who's looking to fit in. And so that's what I'm here to tell you guys. It's a difference in having your own culture, so to speak, when you're raised as an introvert by yourself a lot of the time. Things that make me feel comfortable are the things I'm most interested in displaying, not necessarily trying to go along with what everybody else is doing. I don't particularly care to do that. If it doesn't align with what it is that I like or feel makes sense to me. So, my mother told me, you're a leader, not a follower. And the older I get, the more I realize exactly what I am. I look around and see what people are allowing to happen in this world and what they're afraid to talk about and what it is they feel is just not reasonable. I find myself laughing at all of that and can continue to do whatever the hell I want to do. And sometimes it works in my favor. Sometimes I don't have that right. But that's exactly how I operate in a lot of cases. If I were a celebrity, I don't think I would be silent on the genocide. I don't think so. I'd have a lot of enemies. People would not like me very much because I would be talking about that type of stuff, and they would be like, "This is so political," or "This is so." I'm like, I don't care. The culture in my mind tells me that I can talk about this all day long. You know what I mean? Like literally. So, as to where other people be like, "Nah, you shouldn't do that," or "Nah, that's probably gonna leave you in a space where you're gonna step on the wrong toes, piss the wrong people off." I'll be like, at this point in time, I don't even want to be around those people to find out if they're pissed or not. You know what I'm saying? I'm not interested in even being in their presence, let alone interested in what they have to say about what it is I'm doing that they may not appreciate, that holds them accountable for things that they allow to happen that shouldn't take place. As to where, as I've said this many times, a lot of times what I'm finding is that people do have a desire to see justice served in circumstances such as genocide, but they also feel that it's in their best interest to prioritize themselves over that for which is, going on in those circumstances. As to where they feel it would be a wiser choice to continue to take from those who or receive opportunities from those who are continuing to engage in the genocide. I'm of the mindset I don't want nothing they have. Anything they have is cursed. It's the way I look at this. So for you to say, "Oh, don't talk about this genocide, they're going to take something from me," they ain't got nothing to take from me that I actually want. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, like, that's how I view it. That's how I look at it. That's what inspires me to speak in the presence of people saying it's unwise to do so. "Oh man, they're gonna fire you. I don't want that job." "Oh man, they're gonna take away your contract." "Man, I didn't sign that contract." "Oh man, you're gonna be broke for the rest of your life." Man, that's not real wealth. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like the culture in my mind allows me to buck them naturally. I don't care for having anything that they are offering. In fact, I'm trying to condition myself to look at it as poisonous, spiritually poisonous. Everything they got is spiritually poisonous if this is what they're doing. You see what I'm saying? And then I'm trying to tell all of y'all the same thing. So it's like, I'm not a follower. Not as it pertains to these type of things. No, I'm a leader. I'm telling you. Not only should you not worry about losing what they have, you should be quick to drop what it is that they have if they're engaging in stuff that makes them cursed. For which I'd imagine killing children is pretty much on the top of the list of that. So it's like, man, this is why I'm wired the way I am. This is why the Lord put me in the mindset and have me be in the conditioning that I'm in. It's so that I can lead whoever's following what I'm saying into a space where it's normal to do things that in our status quo it seems to be unwise, as to preserve that for which you want to keep going, that is controlled by those who are doing things that are awful. This is just what makes the world go round. No, I don't know that to be the case. I believe that what keeps the world going around is people being complicit to things like genocide and not holding people accountable for it is what makes the world go round. Because then from there, the systems that keep those people in place continue to be prioritized over that for which is the justice necessary in the conversation. Now, money isn't the root of all evil. Human beings who value money over human beings is the root of all evil. You can take that same money and do a bunch of good things with it if you have a good heart and an unselfish heart. You can do good things with it. Or you can do all bad things with it, as to which it will be the root of all evil. A lot of people say guns don't shoot people, people shoot people. I don't think the logic aligns, because without the gun, the people can't shoot. The gun is actually the device from which the shooting takes place. The people may point the gun, but the gun can too go off without the people necessarily having intentions. So that doesn't equate. In my mind, it doesn't equate. So in my mind, I say to you all, when it comes to genocide and the annihilation of a whole people in modern times, those who are engaging in that, I don't want them to control anything that I need. As far as to say, I think it's unwise to put myself in a position to value anything that they can give me or otherwise hold over my head to keep me compliant to their bullshit. I think that's a poor use of the limited time that I have in this earth, is to prioritize what they use to more or less keep me under control in the presence of them doing horrible things and spoiling themselves and doing those things. I don't see that as wise for me as a human being to pass that forward to anybody, let alone my own children, if I were to have any. And that's where I part ways with the following world. Following world is like, well, we just gotta, it's peace around us. They're not trying to kill us. They're not killing any of our allies. They are our allies. So if anyone does try to kill us, they're the ones that's going to help us. No, they're not. Not if that's where their morals lie. No, they're going to throw us under the bus and allow us to die if they don't kill us themselves. And that's the presence of the faith of the Holy Spirit in my life that helps me understand that so very clearly that if people are engaging in this type of behavior, they're most definitely not to be trusted as allies. Whatever you're hanging your hat on holds no weight with these people. Whatever it is that you think you must have that they provide has no stability or no goodness attached to it, because this is what they live to do. This is what they're doing with their time. That's to say, you probably should not want anything they have at all, regardless if you tell yourself you need it or not, regardless if you believe you need it to uphold things or not. Whatever it is they got ain't stable. Whatever it is that they think they have control over, they're obviously trying to do things they have no business doing, which is clearly unwise. So whatever it is they got is likely at the mercy of their decision making, which is, again, unwise. That's to say that they're probably going to lose everything they have. And so what happens when they do? If you're relying upon them and they are engaging in unwise and poor choices, then what it is you have is what? Stable? You convince yourself of such? I will not do that. I will not do that. And so that's why I tell people, man, I don't agree with the ideology that drives them to do that. I don't benefit from it in any way. Even if I did, I would think it was demonic. And furthermore, I don't agree with it, so I don't follow it. And don't think that anyone else should as well. And somebody may hear that and think I'm harsh because of the twisted, warped ideology that lives in their mind that would allow for them to follow such energy. It's twisted. And the culture in my mind allows me to see that clearly as to where the followings of the world around me will tell me, no, I'm twisted because I support those who are ultimately on the other side of those who are in power. And the narrative that they say is what it is we should believe because they control the laws and our laws is what we follow. And it's like, nah, God told me. use my own brain in these situations. I can't follow the law if the law is going against God's law. If the man who wrote the law intended to give himself passes for doing horrible things to wonderful people, then the law is broken. And so if the law is broken and I follow it, then what am I following? Broken law. So it's the same equivalent to what it would be if you broke a good law by following said law. One has to think for themselves. So they know better than to follow the state down the path of being at war with a living God. A man can write in law anything if he controls the law itself. He can do anything with that law. That law ain't no good. That law is telling us to do the wrong things. That law is challenging us to go against God. That law is challenging us to abandon our humanity and our decency and our compassion and point it only at those who control the law. Point it only at those who are in position to hold that law over our head. I'm not able, within the culture of my mind, as an introvert, I'm not able to follow anyone down that path. I don't even know how to do that. And furthermore, I don't know what type of conditioning one would have to put into my head over a course of many years of time, and mostly development years, in order to get me to go along with that, having the culture of free thinking being promoted within my heart. To follow those who are doing things that are wrong for fear of that for which they control no longer serving me. I don't feel it serves me. I think, in fact, this goes against everything that I believe in entirely. And so it leaves me in a space without, for which actually is with. When you consider I'm not eating the poison that ultimately all of us are addicted to out here, following those who do these horrible things down the path of allowing them to do it. That's poison. You don't need that stuff. You're addicted to it. That's a drug. That's not a fruit. That's not a vitamin. That's a drug. And when you really consider it, you'll find that to be the case. Oh, I need to keep my job with these people, man. But what they're doing is awful. So what they have is no good, as we already illustrated. So that you need what they have, knowing that they are doing no good with it, makes you not somebody who's wise for holding on to it, but an addict. You're an addict. Because an addict in a lot of cases is going to go against what is in his best interest, what is against the best interest of the people he cares for, what is against the best interest of the world around him, and even the law that he's following in his world, in his state, so that he can get his fix. Well, in this case, you're going against God's law. You're letting these people kill children and terrorize people just because of their race and because of however it goes. You're allowing them to do that so that you can have security in that for which they control. They are your drug dealer and you are their fiend. That's what the culture of my mind tells me in regards to Zionist nonsense. And those of y'all who uphold it for the sake of the stability of your own life. Oh, I need that job. I can't speak up on what's going on in Palestine because they're going to shun me in my job. You are an addict. You're an addict and they provide you your fix. Allow me to lead you there. To help you understand what you actually are. It's not wise that you do that because it's unwise what you're allowing them to do. What they are doing is unwise and none of it should be done. And the only way it really gets done is if a bunch of addicts just like you continue in unison to allow for them to do it without being held accountable. To prioritize your fix over that for which is righteousness in regards to what it is that they're doing. Against all God's wisdom, against all of what preserves us as human beings, we will allow them to eradicate an entire race of people so that we can keep our contracts. Addict. So that we cannot be seen as terrorist sympathizers. in the presence of them using that rhetoric to redefine what good and evil is. You're an addict to that for which is their upside down norms. That's your drug, being accepted in the presence of their rhetoric. Being accepted in a world where they define what good and evil, what right and wrong, what up and down actually is. You're not wise. This isn't fruit. That is a drug, and you are an addict. You don't need to keep doing that. You need rehab. So that's what I want people to understand. That's how I see this. Y'all following the Zionists down the road of disgracing your last name. And over the last 500 days, don't want to speak up on what they're doing. You're an addict. That's all it is. That's what my culture and my mind tells me. I'm not to follow you down the path of being an addict. If I want to survive and I want to do what makes sense in regards to my life, I got to do the opposite of what you're doing. If I want to do what it is that's ultimately wise in the world I'm in, I got to follow what makes sense in regards to the things that I believe, which is that children don't deserve to suffer at the behest of states and cults and religious sects and all these different things. Your government wants to be empowered. A lot of those people at the top of this thing want to get the money that comes from Israel paying them. They're addicts to the power. They're addicts to the money. They're addicts to the guise of safety behind fascism for which they've allowed into our country. Addicted to the power. Addicted to the agreement that they are civilized for behaving in this action. They are addicts. Fiends. Druggies. Crackheads. That is exactly what I see there when they get together and clap for Netanyahu. I see a bunch of addicts. A bunch of head-scratching, butt-scratching addicts. That's what I see. Willing to do whatever they can to fulfill their fix at the expense of anything and everything that actually is best. And so that's what I'm here to tell y'all, man. Hollywood, bunch of addicts, man. I need my fame. I need my contract. I need to be able to stay in this business. A lot of people that we grew up appreciating very much, they're addicts to the idea of that appreciation and being able to display themselves on the platforms that the drug dealers ultimately control. I need to be on NBC. I need to be on CBS. I need to be. Yeah, you do. How you doing, brother? You need that because you're an addict to it. What's wise is you considering your voice and having the ability to influence people with the fame that you have to go against that for which allows for children to suffer in modern times in these genocides and different things like that. And furthermore, being so willing to allow those who you are getting your drugs from to mold the narrative surrounding their suffering so that you can be one of many voices that influence people like myself to think that it's good that this takes place and that those who are doing it are righteous, powerful, and furthermore just in their actions. You are part of what keeps this acceptable in the eyes of those who can't think for themselves, in the eyes of those who are too afraid to speak up. You reinforce, by way of your addiction, the overall environment for which allowing this suffering to take place will continue to be upheld for generations to come. And that for which is Zionist supremacy will continue to be in place because of people like you who won't speak up because you're addicted to what it is that they have. And you're afraid of what happens when you can't get your fix. You don't want those withdrawals. That's all that is. You need rehab. For the drug that is fame, for the drug that is money, for the drug that is security in the presence of wrongdoers who all agree that we should be quiet while it's being done. And you feel safer. Not knowing that you're following down the path of a person who's doing unwise things. And when they fall, you fall with them. That they are not to be trusted because the sheer nature of their humanity has them destroying children for the sake of their religion. They're definitely not going to have your back when you need them. Not when it absolutely matters the most. If it says in their little book that they're going to kill you off, they're going to turn their attention to you next. I guess you feel like befriending these demons gives you the best chance of ultimately not having their wrath turned against you, maybe. That they won't crash your plane on purpose if you allow them to kill their Palestinian people that they want to kill. Like, you're an addict to fake safety. It's not real safety. That's not real. The safety is no realer than the Lord's willingness to allow them to continue to do this without resistance. Of course, that entity that wants to do this horrible deed is going to tell the story if you allow them the opportunity and the voice from which to do so. They're not going to tell you that they're the bad guy and that they're fine with doing bad things. They're going to tell you that the people they're doing this to are horrible human beings and need this done to them. That's what they're going to do. I mean, that's the essence of trying to get away with something that you had no business doing. It's controlling the narrative, telling lies that ultimately will allow for public acceptance of this behavior, of these deeds. And then when you feel so comfortable is that you have everyone as an addict to what it is that you provide, then you can really be boisterous in regards to what it is that you decide, because at the end of the day, there's no goodness in you. You're just moving in a space from which allows for you to continue to do horrible things to good people. And that fat and happiness, as I like to call it, can ultimately make you cocky, which is what we see a lot of them engaging in, is cockiness. It's flat out cockiness. As to not hide this behavior, as to provide celebratory energy surrounding those who push the narrative. For pushing the narrative. I understand that one of these individuals that I've seen a lot representing Israel, this elderly lady who's been talking about annihilating Palestinians since the beginning of the genocide. I've been seeing her everywhere. I didn't retain her name. Probably best I don't mention it. To speak that name is probably cursed on my lips. But just the same, they're offering, they've nominated her for the Nobel Peace Prize. Because they control such things. Why? Because so many people within those spaces who keep those things going are addicts to that for which allows for those things to be kept going by the evildoers who celebrate one another for the evil that they ultimately uphold. And as I've said many times, the Zionists control a lot of the things that we ultimately know as, charitable things, things that ultimately celebrate humanity, things that ultimately celebrate saving lives and things like that are controlled by people who want to commit genocide. They have effectively either founded these things by way of their diabolical plan to ultimately control everything, or bought these things over time with that same intention in mind. So they can control all of the different things that would ultimately stop them from doing this. Buy all the governments they can, control all the lawmakers all over the place, everywhere, so that when it's time to be held accountable for it, who do you turn to hold it? Who would otherwise hold people accountable for genocide? Those who control everything, who want to commit genocide. Those same people are the ones who control everything. So it's like, as long as we continue to be addicts for what it is that they have, addicts for what it is that ultimately their fake control, their fake safety that comes with allowing them to continue to control everything for fear of it all falling apart. And we lose sight of the idea that it is going to fall apart because they control it. You lose sight of the wisdom that comes with that notion. That you probably shouldn't be holding on to nothing that they got going on, because just like anything that surrounded the Titanic, if it go down, you go down with it. That's the wisdom that our country is failing miserably in engaging in. That the Western world as a whole is failing miserably in engaging in. And you let bad guys control good things. So now when it's time to hold bad guys accountable, you can't. For fear of all of the good things that you ultimately have deteriorating, for holding them accountable. It doesn't work. The logic will fail you in the end. And so I'm trying to articulate this properly. I don't know if I've driven the point home like I'd like to. But essentially, so long as y'all afraid of them falling being the undoing of all that you uphold, you will always allow them to drag you down when they fall. You're going down with them. And all you addicts, y'all gonna die of the drug that you suffer from. That's the reality of it. You ain't gonna survive that. All of y'all who think it's only safe if you allow them to do this, you're standing in the spaces that are most unsafe in reality. That's the God's honest truth. You're safer doing what I'm doing than what it is you're doing, and allowing them to do this, and then furthermore allowing your complicity to it to be documented in the cloud forever. A lot of y'all legacies, y'all worked y'all entire lives for y'all legacies to be upheld, only for you to be remembered as one of many pieces that came together to allow horrible things to take place in modern times. That's all you're going to be known for. I've said this on this camera many times, but it's the truth. All y'all going to be known for is some of the most vile complicity known to modern times. Vile complicity. You knew, you were stood next to the people who did this, and you were fine with it. A lot of y'all have wonderful history in life, in whatever fields of life that you walked. But the only thing they're going to talk about when they look back on this era is the complicity to the genocide, and they're going to see your faces. Floyd Mayweather. Your faces. They ain't going to talk about your record in boxing. They're going to talk about how you stood with Israel when you knew damn well they were killing people. Samuel L. Jackson, when that man was standing on stage talking about Palestine in that award show, and they caught you saying to whoever that was, that other young lady, that this guy made that speech political, these are the things that we're going to remember you for, because these are the things that define the times we're in. Genocide defines the entire 2024, 2025. And the only reason why we're not seeing it as such is because those who control the narrative right now are the ones who are committing it genocide. Once they stop controlling everything, that's all this is going to be defined as. When they take that great fall that's ultimately coming for what it is they've done, then you're going to understand what has defined these times the whole time you've been in it. It's that for which you were complicit to, dummies. You took a piss over your whole damn legacy backing these people down that path. And it ain't gonna go away because they murdered children. Hind. That's one of thousands of stories that will be the defining things that talk about the middle 2020s. Early to middle 2020s. They're gonna talk about how Israel controlled America and thus allowed for so much awful things to happen between the two of them in the Middle East in the name of occupied Palestine, also known as Israel. I'm telling y'all, that's what defines the times we're in. And that y'all can't see that because you're too busy addicted to that for which the bad guy holds. The guys who are doing the awful thing, the terrorist Nazis of the modern era, who have full control over our country right now. You standing with them is just going to mean that you're going to go down in history as the ones who stood with the Hitler of the modern times. Don't be foolish any further than you've already been. The sheer nature of what they're doing is going to secure their failure. This type of behavior is failure in and of itself. And so that's what I'm saying to all of y'all, man. People like Seinfeld, we mentioned him many times. Amy Schumer, all these different people that align with this ideology, you've been failed. You were failed as children, man. Just like the rest of your people were failed as children. You shouldn't have been taught that this was okay. There was nothing fine about that. Stealing those people's land and then furthermore giving yourself passes for it because of something that says in a book, that book failed you. And you uphold these nonsensical ideologies because you want to be in line with your people. That is stupidity. Your people are doing awful things. You need to stay away from those things so that you're not aligned with those awful people. It is not a factor of you not having no other choice. You just refuse to think for yourself. You were addicts for what it is that ultimately they provided, which was something that made you feel like you were important and that you can control the world. But if you can control the world doing the worst things, then you're going to lose control of the world and bring about your undoing. This is what wisdom would have taught you if you were loved enough to be taught that. Michael Rappaport. You undid your whole damn thing, trying to follow these clowns down the path of horror. You want to steal land from these people because you feel you're entitled to it. You're doing awful things to those people because they're standing up against you for trying to do so. Why don't they have a right to stand against you in your mind? If not for some warped ideology that tells you that they don't have a right to because of who they are. But how is that any different than the evil that's pointed at black people? Some of y'all same people think it's just the worst thing in the world. The civil rights took place. You are against civil rights when you do it to other people. But I guess because it's written in your magical book, it's fine, right? Can't think for yourself, therefore you are blinded by evil. And I am here to tell you, that is all that you're going to be defined as. Not your works, not your fame. All of that stuff is short-sighted in nature. That ain't going to be what people going to ultimately talk about with you. They're going to see a picture of Hind, and then we're going to see footage of you upholding that for which slaughtered her without justice. That's all you're going to be remembered as. And those who were complicit in regards to allowing it to happen. Because you're in the culture of human beings and aligning with people that I want to feel a part of my people. I'm not going to be a sellout Jew. I'm not going to be that type of stuff. You're going to line up with people who are doing awful things and then you're going to fall with them. That's fine. That's what you want to be, but don't be confused about that. Don't be confused by that. Those who are going to buck that are the ones who are going to be seen as most honorable. The resistance is going to be seen as most justified. Do you wonder why we don't go around shunning the name of Nat Turner? Do you know why we don't go around saying John Brown is a bad guy? Wake up. Because in those times, that's definitely what they were saying about those people. And as history would tell it, those people ended up being good human beings, or at least reasonable human beings in the presence of severe bullying, for which they had every right to stand up against, whether they benefited from it or not. And that you can't see yourself as the oppressor in this situation means that you're destined to be known as that for the rest of your eternity. It's your legacy. It's because you can't think your way out of that. It's your legacy because you can't think yourself around this demonic entity known as your cult/religion. It is going to be the bane of your legacy, let alone your spirit. And you ain't gonna hear none of this because you're too busy believing what's in the Talmud, telling you have a right to treat people horribly just because of their color, that you have a right to land, it was stolen from you, and now you have a right to hurt the people who are standing up against your bullying because you are greater than them, and therefore that ideology, that religious belief and that cult fails you miserably. It fails you. Whether you believe it or not, it fails you. And history has taught you this, but you will not be the wise one because you're too busy being an addict to what comes with believing that you are better than anybody else or better than everybody else, that we're goy and everybody else other than the Jew is a bad guy or what have you. Whatever you use to justify being an addict to this ideology and what comes with it in your mind. The only thing that really comes with it is disgrace. Sheer and utter disgrace. I would rather be a goy. Elephant in the room, I'd rather be a goy. It's better on this side, believe me. Because I'm not going to be known as somebody who was complicit to genocide, to be has my very own confidence in my people. I will not go down as a Jew, as a Zionist. Those who made children suffer so that they could feel at peace with themselves. That is awful. That's an awful legacy. I don't care how many presidents tell you it's okay to be that. You definitely do not want to follow them. Don't be an addict to what they are an addict to. I'm trying to help people, man. Hopefully we can reach somebody on that side and get them to just see what it is I'm saying. It is better to be a goy than you. I promise you. Because even though you control the story in the short term, the long term tells you that overall the world is going to tell a different story about you than what you tell about yourself. And when that story is told, it's going to be spread far and wide across time and space. And while you may be comfortable within your present time, your legacy is going to be disgraced. And that for which what it is that you control is not going to be in your possession for long. So all that's going to be left is the people that you leave behind with this awful legacy attached to their behind. And I'm telling you, man, it is nothing you want. I don't care how many people alive today tell you that's something that's fine. They don't see what's coming. Their wisdom though, and their addiction doesn't allow them to see the truth about what is actually taking place here. What truly defines them and the times they're in. It's genocide, man. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that. Video 44, I thank you all for watching. I'm out.